Yorofo, President John Dramani Mahama, Oba Besaki Sam George ana. Hey, Yorofo, breaking news where they are no shit. Ye ba Besaki Sam George ana. Hey, DSTV in some same way, new DSTV pricing in some same way at Sam George the buy no. Yes, ye ni menim ya Sam George, John Dramani Mahama, ye the petition case here. Edi akwako to John Dramani Mahama na kachi se enimeni ya no on sack Sam George no yini fi akonya so as eye communications minister na niam o ye ne de Ghana fo eni nje ho kra ye say new DSTV pricing na eye Sam George de ba no a spark controversies here and there no just amanfo ni abre dendende omo si enimeni ya John Dramani Mahama se wo mpe ne tutu empe ne nua de a Sam George efi akonya so as minister for communications orofo we na petition case here according to Sam George arewo sem case here pan John Dramani Mahama eba be yin fi office orofo we petition case here Ghana fo nyina o masani da call Sam George na kachi a akwakodu office of the presidency John Dramani Mahama na kachi say enimeni ya on yi Sam George efi akonwa so as air communications minister orofo mayenko ne kwaji sansemu nyina nchim Ghanatube memraisia.
The minority in parliament is asking President Mahama to remove Sam George as communications minister. The call comes on the back of the pricing impasse between DSTV and the minister. The minister, who was pressing for a 30% reduction in DSTV subscription fees, later announced an upgrade in packages. Let's get more on this story. Grace Hamwa Ajimwe is at the Minority Press Conference and joins us with a bit more details on this story. Grace, we know the minority is making some 3 demands. What are these?
Right, so we know that in the last few weeks or months, there's been a back and forth between the Communications Ministry, which is being headed by Sam George, and then the STV platform. This impasse is on the call by the minister for the platform to give Ghanaian subscribers a 30% reduction when it comes to subscription fees. Now, there's been a number of press conferences on who is saying the truth or who is not saying what, and the last one being the minister announcing some upgrade in packages for subscribers. Just yesterday, DSTV in its first press release says that the announcement by the minister was just a promotion that they were running. Later, it came out to say it wasn't a promotion, but that was the agreement between the minister and what Ghanaians are going to get. So this morning, the minority is holding the press conference to say that the actions by the ministry from the beginning of the negotiations up until yesterday is what they describe as disingenuous, populist, and what Gen Zs would say is sentence, because the minister did not heed to calls by the minority and other stakeholders in the industry to use other means of negotiation instead of what they describe as threats and a wild goose chase that is taking the entire nation on. So the minority by this press conference is making 3 demands. First one, they are calling on the minister to render an unqualified apology to Ghanaians for the waste of the nation's time and resources on this venture. This is in the words of the minority. They are also saying that they call on him to account for the fines levied on DSTV. We know that since the impasse began, the DSTV has been levied some fines for failure to provide some information to the ministry, and the minority says that, okay, we want you to also account to us on how much they paid, how many times they paid, and what has become of these fines or these monies that they paid into the coffers of the government. And finally, the minority says they deem him to continue, they deem him unfit to continue as Minister for the Strategic Ministry of Communication, Technology and Innovation, and therefore call on him to resign or call on President Mahama to remove him as minister from that office.
See, Grace, do we know what they plan to do next? Well, hello, Grace. Let's try again. Do we know what they plan to do next?
Right. Yes, so the minority says this is the first of a number of press conferences they are going to hold to mount pressure on the government to heed to the 3 demands that I have earlier spoken about. They tell me that the Ministry of Communication is a strategic one that needs a minister who, according to them, is level-headed and will use other forms of negotiation to make demands for the country. They have mentioned 2 solutions they say is what is needed now in solving the impasse. And the first one they tell us is that if subscribers on the DSTV platform find the platform to be very expensive, or as we call it, luxurious, then they should exit the platform and subscribe to other platforms, or even just watch the local television channels that we have. Or they are also calling on government to reduce the tax component on the taxes that DSTV pays. They tell us that DSTV pays 28% tax on their revenue, and that they think is too much. And so if government wants to negotiate a 30% reduction in subscription fees for subscribers, government should also create that serene or conducive environment for these private companies or for these international companies to thrive. And so for them, this is not the end of it. They are going to mount pressure on government, indulge in other advocacy activities to ensure that Ghanaians or subscribers get value for money for what they pay. Back to
Grace, thank you for the reporting. Grace Hamwa Ajiman there. Let's now take a listen to that minority press conference briefly.
By adopting an arbitrary decision-making posture, the minister is also denying regulators, such as the NCA, the opportunity to perform their work according to law, which clearly threatens the growth of this sensitive industry. His actions also signal a breach of the President's Code of Conduct that requires candor and respect to all persons. Fellow Ghanaians, for this display of ineptitude, incompetence, and penchant for deceit, we of the minority demand that 1, the minister render an unqualified apology to Ghanaians for the waste of the nation's time and resources on this venture. 2, we call on him to account for the fines levied on DSTV. And 3, we deem him unfit to continue as the minister for this strategic ministry of communication, digital technology, and innovation, and therefore call on him to resign, or for His Excellency the President to fire him. Thank you.
That's the Deputy Ranking on Parliament's Communication and Information Committee addressing the press there earlier, calling for the dismissal of Communications Minister Sam George over that situation with DSTV. You're live here on News Central. We'll take our very first break, but when we come back,
Order 4, anyam na mekan you where breaking news abetudwa efa Sam George we say enimeni miya no onfa na djuma nto as communications minister on pen ho asema onfa na djuma nto as communications minister anase John Dramani Mahama enimeni miya no onfa pen in secret aso no onfa na resignation letter anase onfa na sacking notice anase onfa say termination of appointment letter kese pa enfa to Sam George so na onyi Sam George enfi akonya no so as communications minister order 4 we ene say petition kese a ye de asanye ko aye John Dramani Mahama na kachi a meso bi ni nyina bro e wo Ghana you see enimeni ya John Dramani Mahama yi onyi Sam George enfi akonya so as a communications minister on sacking on terminating appointment no anata Sam George nankasa ombra bonti no be resigning no nkase tintontan odinejuma tworofo we ene ensem ekoso am so bi nyina bro e wo Ghana to me fi se be like na ma subscribe na ma share na ma hit notification board so ma se ne be a bring a bibia do content say a wo nya ne tempa no ahwe wuti amado aha na me de nsem nyina be say Ghanatube so makra mu nyina me da mu nyina se bebre